failure is necessary, right?
It's more difficult to call someone out of the blue to their cell phone than to just go to their office and say, hey, introduce.
Face-to-face, in-person connection typically has a lot more power than most other interactions.
The global revenue for the telecommunication industry is $1.6 trillion a year. The easy way is the hard way because the easy way never gets you there.
Showing up is often a prerequisite for success.
I want to build a great company with great people.
Welcome to the podcast From Cold to Close. My name is Saeed and I'm the founder here at SRC Growth Partner, a growth company that works with professional services firms from around the world to help them increase their revenue and profitability by acquiring new clients. My guest today is Brian Molina, the CEO of Impulse, a revenue intelligence platform for telecoms providers. Brian's solution proactively monitors network issues and automatically reaches out to customers with emails, SMS, and even AI-powered calls to address problems before they become cancellations. Brian, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Saeed. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm looking forward to the conversation. The solution you've created sounds really interesting. So before we jump into the protein of the podcast and today's episode, could you share a little bit of your background for the viewers and listeners out there who don't know who Brian Molina is? And I guess share your journey to where you got today and what you're currently doing with Impulse.
Definitely. Thanks. My background is more on engineering. Like I've been a networking engineer for the telecommunication industry for the majority of my life. Then I've done corporate sales, technical sales for the telecommunication industry. And that's pretty much how we came up into creating a company, because we essentially saw the same issues in all of the telecommunication companies that I've worked in and that my co-founders have worked in. And we said, okay, let's solve these issues, essentially issues that cause a lot of money to be left on the table. So we decided to do that. So networking, sales, that's pretty much my background. Yeah.
Fantastic. And tell us a little bit more about what Impulse is. What do you do? What's the platform? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, thanks. So essentially what Impulse is a tool, is a platform that helps telecom providers, ISPs, wireless internet service providers do two things. We help reduce churn and we help increase sales. Essentially, the telecommunication industry has various complexities because it's an old industry. Telecommunication industry is a very, very old industry. So we help connect the GPON system, networking systems, billing systems, all these outdated systems. We help take out the complexities in the middle and give business leaders the insights that they need to sell more and to decrease cancellations. The industry as a whole has yearly cancellations about 30 to 35% yearly. So a lot of churn, big churn, billions of dollars that they're losing.
Wow.
So we help reduce that. That's pretty much it.
It sounds like you're solving a really major problem there, because with any element, I'm talking even with our own business, if we had a 35-40% churn on any kind of service that we were running, that would have quite a substantial effect on how you would operate the business, the decisions you're making on a day-to-day basis, week to week, quarterly, year to year. So it sounds like you're solving a real problem for a real sector. Talk us through that aha moment, that when you realized, oh, wait a second, this is a problem and I can solve it. Talk us through that.
I think maybe it was different situations that I was in that caused it. Like I used to manage big corporate accounts in the Cayman Islands, big telco accounts in the Cayman Islands. And essentially, there were a lot of cancellations, like clients that maybe were billed $5,000 a month, maybe $10,000 a month, clients that were churning. And that's like $100K a year, $200K a year per customer. So in my mind, it's like, what caused these customers to churn? The service seems to be okay. Like they have downtime, but what is causing them to cancel their circuits, like their big corporate circuits? So essentially, that was it. A lot of customers that I was seeing that were canceling throughout the years. And I questioned myself towards what is causing this? And that's a lot of money that was being left on the table. So it was adding up of so many moments of customers canceling, so much money being left there. So that's why I said, okay, what is causing them? And it's essentially, when they're down, no one communicates with them. No one acknowledges the issue. Like we can talk about, because you're an internet user, like in your home, maybe in your business, you have an internet connection. You know, the majority of people are not satisfied with their internet service provider. Like the NPS score in the telecommunication industry is the worst NPS score in any industry. So yeah, I can say that it was adding up of those moments that brought us here. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I asked that question, but it typically I given a similar answer in the sense that there's never any one moment that drives someone to that business
No.
decision. Like it's not a eureka moment. It's a development of experiences over a period of time, over a professional career where you've been in the business, in the weeds, learning and doing what you were doing in the industry and seeing a problem arise by just being in the industry, right? And then actually going, okay, how do we solve it? What do we need to do? And what needs to be done? So talk to me about how you developed the platform, the software. Obviously, you see a lot out there of, oh, you should start a software business, or you should start create your own platform and stuff like that. But obviously, most people don't know how they would go about that, what they would need to do. So talk to me about your journey in creating the platform.
My journey wasn't a nice one. It was a very painful experience that we went through because essentially we knew that there were issues in the industry. We just didn't know
Mm,
what was the main issue that the industry had. So we
mm,
created some solutions. Like we created a enterprise bandwidth analyzer. We created BPO solutions. We created a whole repertoire of solutions, like
mm.
maybe 4 years ago. And we went to market and we were speaking with customers, and they weren't interested. They weren't interested. Like it was painful. So those experiences like brought us feedback that we needed to be able to build the solution that the market really wanted. So yeah, we tried and tested different solutions, really understood the core problem that we were solving. I think it was that. We have a better understanding of the core problem than the majority of the market. And had the opportunity to get that whilst failing, if I can say that.
Yeah, a really interesting point you mentioned there was that last bit you said, whilst failing, right? And a lot of people are scared to fail. And one of the key attributes to successful entrepreneurs, successful businesses, I always find based off of my experiences, based off of the conversations I've had on this podcast, based off of lots of different podcasts I've listened to, is failure is necessary, right? Failure leads to optimization, failure leads to feedback. Obviously, you need to listen to that failure, you need to learn from that failure, you need to learn from the feedback. But the failure element of the journey is necessary for you to be able to create the solution in the back end, right? And as you said, it took you a few failures, a few no's, many no's, I'm sure, before you come to a realization and get the feedback that you now know what the core problem you're solving is. And it's first principles thinking, right? Once you know what the core problem is and the foundational building blocks of what you're trying to do, you can build out from there and you can build something a little bit more key and adaptable for who you're trying to create for. In terms of, you touched on it earlier, the 30 to 40% annual churn rate in the telecoms industry. And that's a quite staggering amount, quite staggering figure. How does your proactive monitoring system in the platform prevent customers from leaving? What exactly are you doing? How are you doing it?
Great question. So essentially, ISPs have tools to monitor downtime. Like they have tools to monitor every router, but the engineers have the tools to monitor the routers. The business people, salespeople, and support people don't generally have the tools to monitor the routers because it's a complex problem to solve to integrate the GPON system, like the networking systems, to the billing systems. It is a complex challenge to solve. So the engineers know when your router is down, but the business people don't. So that's
Mm,
why you don't receive an email. That's why you don't receive a call. That's why you don't receive an SMS. So what we do is we integrate these systems. It's a complex engineering challenge to solve. Like we need to bring in 5 to 6 engineers, scope out the network, scope out all of the devices, integrate the billing platform, and then make sure that every time that a router is down or that any time that a customer has increased latency or Wi-Fi disconnects or maybe cybersecurity threat, anything that happens in the customer network, we make sure that we inform the business people and that we take proactive actions. For
mm,
example, if your network is down, you're gonna have a AI call you, say, "Hey Saeed, we noticed that your network is down. Apologies because of the inconvenience. And note that our department is already notified and we're working to solve it." That's how the system does it, yeah.
I love the fact that you're integrating AI into the solution. And obviously, that's a very topical topic, I should say, currently, especially with most solutions out there. So, in terms of the actual solution, from the sounds of things, a lot of it is down to the fact that end user customers don't actually get the communication and the peace of mind that they need or the clarity they need to be able to then go, okay, well, I know someone's dealing with this problem rather than being left in the dark for so long. Is that right?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
people want to know what is happening. People don't want to be left in the dark, like in anything, in any industry. If you have a customer, they do not want to be left in the dark. They want to know what is happening. And the telecommunication industry doesn't do it because of the complexities. But it doesn't mean that the consumer doesn't want to know what is happening. They want to know what is happening, but no one is informing them. Hence, they just cancel. They have no ties with their telecom company. They don't care for it. Because they don't care for them either.
Yeah, it's actually, when you speak about the problem itself, it makes so much sense. And you think to yourself, why isn't this being done more consistently? And obviously, you touch on the fact that it is complex. It's a complex problem. You need 5 or 6 engineers to come in and have a look at the network and build it out and understand how it would work. So, talk to me about the relation between reducing churn and increasing sales. How does that same system accomplish both goals?
You're very technical because you're asking the right question.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Though, essentially, a lot of issues are not caused because of the internet service provider. Like, once you build a fiber network, it's reliably stable. Like, it doesn't really give issues that much. However, there's a lot of issues with packages. If you stream on Netflix, like streaming on Netflix is 25 megs per second, streaming in 4K, right? So you have 4 TVs, that's 100 megs that you're consuming consistently. Let's say you have 8 TVs, you're consuming 200 megs. So let's say you have a 100 meg package. Like in Central America, the norm is 100 meg package that you have. Let's say a person has a 100 meg package. They have 4 TVs streaming Netflix, 25 megs per second, 4 TVs, that's 100 megs. They have an issue with their package. So now Netflix is loading slower, calls are getting lag, they're getting disrupted. And what the person says is, oh, my internet service provider is not working. But it's not really that. It's that their package is not the correct one. They probably need a 200 meg package. So what the system does is we monitor that bandwidth usage automatically. And whenever that bandwidth usage is going to cause a consumer experience, like a harmful consumer experience, the system proactively calls them via AI or automates an email, automates an SMS and says, hey, customer, we noticed that your bandwidth usage, it needs more bandwidth. And here's an offer, just upgrade, here's the price, and your consumer experience will be a lot better. People appreciate that because now they know, oh, it's not an issue with my internet service provider. It's that my package is not the correct one. And here's the data that backs it up. So that's how it does it. Yeah.
That's really fascinating that you said that, because even in my own experience, I'm sure that's happened historically where I've been frustrated. Oh, internet connection isn't great. Why is it? Okay, get higher package or whatever. You just pay for the larger bandwidth. But I never understood the reason why, right? The way you articulated it there, if you've got 8 things going on at the same time, it's an issue. It's not an internet issue, it's a package issue because it's split across the 8 devices or whatever it might be. So it's really interesting you mentioned that, because I'm sure that nugget of information, a lot of people don't actually know that. And having an open line of communication from your internet service provider or a telecoms provider, turning around and going, okay, well, this is exactly why it's happening. You need this because look, you're spending this much bandwidth, you're X, Y, Z. That in itself is a sales pitch that's built around data, right? It's not like, oh, get the biggest package because price is great, or oh, we got a good offer at the moment, or whatever it might be. It's what, well, you're doing this, you need this, right? And then it sells itself. So I love that approach, and I think that's really interesting. You're currently expanding into Latin America, growing, you're traveling. I know we've had a few conversations previously. What's your strategy in building the relationships with these clients of yours, these telecoms? Because let's be honest, it's a very dated industry, let's say, as you mentioned there. The challenge is bringing them in and bringing software and everything up to date. Obviously, they're large organizations and the infrastructure could be a little bit older. What's the strategy? How are you entering into these conversations and things like that? Yeah.
That's an interesting question. Very interesting question. And I like this topic a lot because essentially is B2B, how to get customers, these type of customers. This essentially, I have a very unique approach towards this. I have a very core belief now, Said, that with AI, with automation, you can send 10,000 emails in an hour. You can do 10,000 calls in an hour. In this world that we're living in right now, this AI world, the people that have an edge are the ones that are going into the old ways. And this is knocking doors, kissing babies. That's how it is. So we're going countries to countries. Like whenever we go to a new country, we do some advertising, light advertising. We advise the market that we're there. But essentially, we hit everyone. Once, if we have a target customer, we go, we take a small gift, we introduce ourselves, and we say, we're in the area, and we
Mm.
tell them what we do, and they're normally interested to have a conversation because reducing churn and increasing sales is something that everyone wants to talk about. But
Sure.
that is our approach. Is the old way. We had a full sales team, 5 people selling, and it was complex, like because emails are being bombarded. People don't appreciate that much of cold calls, and I can understand. I can understand it. It's difficult. It's more difficult to call someone out of the blue to their cell phone than to just go to their office and say, "Hey, introduce." It's easier. They receive you better, warmer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I
When they
think
put
that's
a face to the name, it's
yeah,
easier.
100%. Face to face, in person connection typically has a lot more power than most other interactions, primarily because body language comes into play. It's like the brain can work on whether it can make the snap judgments that it needs to in the right way, right? If you dress well, you turn up, you provide something, you go, let's have a conversation, you're more likely to go, oh, this person's genuine rather than this person's just,
Exactly.
100%. And that's not to say that cold calling, cold email, and that type of stuff doesn't work, but
No, it
it,
does.
yeah, exactly. But you're right in the sense that everything works. It's about execution, right? But the power of being in person, even if it's further down in the sales process, right? You do a bit of advertising, you let people know, and then you go in and say, okay, you've given them forewarning that you're coming or something like that. It
Yes.
gives you an advantage. And right now, especially with automation and AI, as you said, cold email, LinkedIn messages, cold DMs, and so on and so forth, they're becoming very saturated. I get 10 to 15 emails and messages per day. Exactly. Everyone knows that's the case. However, it's having a strategy, and it sounds like your strategy is working for you, right? And when you
Yes.
have a strategy that's working, and every business has its quirks and deliverables, is when you have your strategy, you want to be able to go, okay, let's go all in on the strategy, get as much
Exactly.
as we can out of it, and then move from there. What does the typical sales cycle look like when you're selling to these large telecommunications companies? Obviously, they're larger organizations. You turn up, you're going country to country, you turn up to their office, you start the conversation. How long does it typically take before you go from
Yeah.
conversation to let's go, let's move forward, Brian? This is fantastic.
Good question. It depends on their pain, I'd say. It depends on how much pain they're in. But the smaller ones, like smaller telcos, I'd say maybe 1 to 3 months. Any like a telco that has maybe 1,000 subscribers to 100,000 subscribers, it might take 1 to 3 months. If they have anywhere from 100,000 subscribers to 1 million subscribers, it might
Mhm.
take 3 to 6 months. If they have more than 1 million, it might take more than 6 months. They might be in more pain. Like a telco that has millions of customers might be in a world of pain, losing customers as crazy, and they maybe want to implement as soon as possible. But that's
Mhm.
like the norm, I'd say.
It makes a lot of sense. And how big typically is the market for telecommunications, just out of interest? Because obviously you see the few, like in the UK, we have a few big players, right? You have always the big players. How big is the telecommunications market? And you touch on there, like if they have 1,000 subscribers or 100,000, like I'm sure there's gradients of it. How big is the market
It's
itself?
it's humongous. Like the telecommunication industry itself, I don't
Mm,
know how many trillions of dollars it is, but the industry that we're playing in, which is
mm,
the OSS, BSS
mm.
providers, essentially the people that provide the software to the telecom companies, it's like
Sure.
a 72 billion a year market.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that 72 billion market is consistently losing customers and passing it to other customers and so on and so
Oh, no,
forth.
no, no. This is the telecommunication industry is
Sure.
trillions of dollars, trillions of
Oh,
dollars.
wow. Okay. Sure. It makes sense, actually. Yeah, yeah. And the place that you're operating in is the $72 billion. Makes sense.
Yes. So yeah, so the global revenue for the telecommunication industry is $1.6 trillion a year.
Makes plenty of
Yeah.
sense.
The
Yeah.
space that we operate is 72 billion.
Okay, sure, makes sense. Okay, so in terms of then growing the organization and bringing in the right type of people to help you along the journey, talent acquisition is one of the most challenging aspects to growing any business. How have you approached the question of talent acquisition? Is it a challenge for you? Has it been easy? What specific qualities are you currently looking for when hiring? That's been so hard to find typically.
Yeah, it's been somewhat of a challenge. I'd say getting the specific people that might have the right expertise, especially go-to-market people like sales development people that have the knowledge towards it, has been a
Mm.
challenge. However, it's a work in progress, I can say. Work in progress. We're trying to better our account structure, trying to better salaries to be able to attract that tier A talent. And
Sure.
because best talent in the world just comes with good pay, great pay, because they come with the expertise. So growing the company so we can pay employees better, offer them a better comp structure, and then see what comes true. So it's a mix of getting the right talent, vetting the right talent, and offering them the right structure.
Makes sense. And I think that one of the hardest things is talent acquisition. I can speak in my own experience as well. Finding good talent can really change your life for the better, but the journey to finding good talent is also quite tough in itself, right? But when you find a really good hire, you notice it. Like it feels like, okay, I can focus on this. I don't need to worry about a problem that I've been dealing with every single day. That person's handling it. So I think it's always an interesting question to ask. This segment of the podcast I like to call the Entrepreneur's Room. And that's a series of questions we like to ask all of our guests to give our viewers and listeners an opportunity to understand how business owners think and operate in a business. So the first question I like to ask at this stage of the podcast is, how are you currently spending your days as a leader of the business?
Meetings in the morning with my development team. I'd say it'll be that. I try to focus as much time as I can talking about the business because right now we're in a growth mode.
Mm-hmm.
So alignment with my development team first thing in the morning, like if they're spending items, we align ourselves first thing in the morning. The development of the platform, making sure that the roadmap is being completed at the right time. And then I'd say I try to focus the majority of my day in activities that grow the business, talking about the business. So this has been recent because we've been coming out of very intensive development sprints that I've
Mm-hmm.
had to essentially develop myself because I'm also an engineer.
Okay.
So me developing with my team, taking care of some part of the sprints. This was maybe 3, 4 months ago. And now I'm focusing more on the business side, growing the business, talking about the business, marketing and stuff like that. Yeah.
Amazing. It sounds like you went from working in the business to working on the
Yes.
business.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Sure.
1000%.
Yeah.
1000%. But I couldn't get to this point if I didn't make sure that the business was taken care of. Like the business needs to be taken care of. Then
Yeah.
afterwards, you can work on the business. That is a great analogy you used there. 100%.
Yeah, it sounds like, without a doubt, like if you were to, let's say, jump straight into working on the business and you didn't have the ops side set and built out and ready to run, then you're going to encounter so many problems and there's going to be so many issues to have to overcome. And very likely you will hit failure points, right? And so, yeah, 100%. Once you've got something up and running, ready to go, there's more opportunity to be able to
Exactly.
actually focus on the growth side of things. How are you currently growing the business specifically? What specific activities, marketing activities are you doing to grow the business? You mentioned that you market a little bit when you arrive and things like that before you actually do the conversations and turn up. So what are you currently doing at the moment?
That's a very, very good question. And going back to a point that you said, when something is working, you exploit it. What is
Yeah.
working for us right now is, let's say we're going to Costa Rica next week. So right now we have a list of prospects that we're going to hit in Costa Rica. So we send them emails, we send them LinkedIn invites, we tell them that we're going to be there. We call them, advising that we're going to be there. So cold call, cold email, advising that we're going to be in the area. And then once we're in the area, we introduce ourselves with a small gift and then run advertising. Once we open a territory, when we're going to open a territory, we run ads, do cold
Mhm.
emails, cold calls. Once we're in the territory, we introduce ourselves with everyone that we wanted to introduce ourselves with. We have the meetings with them there. We take them to lunch, dinner, so on and so forth. And then once we leave the territory, we leave ads in the territory running so they can know that, yeah, it's pretty much that's the playbook that we're running right now.
It sounds like a really interesting playbook, and I absolutely love it. You're leveraging the cold elements with regards to the email, cold calls, and things like that. But in terms of the ad side of things, are you using Meta ads, Google ads? What exactly are you using?
We're not using that much, Said. We're using Google Ads. So running on their partner networks, YouTube, I don't know which other one of their partner networks. I think it's
Sure.
just Google and YouTube. Yeah.
Sure. Interesting strategy, and I've not actually heard that. And I think that is a testament to you as a founder, CEO, being actually willing to turn up to a territory, and with the advance of letting people know, turning up and going, okay, let me take you to lunches, let me take you to dinners, like doing the hard graft, because a lot of people are looking for the easy way out, right? The easy way of,
I looked for it for years, mate. I've looked for it for years.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know
yeah,
if you know this one
exactly.
guy. This name, Alex Hermosi. Something that he said
Yes,
really
love.
resonates with him. He says the easy way is the hard way because the easy way never gets you there. And I found
Yeah.
that resonates so much with me because I've always been looking for easy ways, and it never brought me to any place. So only the hard way. The hard way is the easy way, actually.
It's absolutely fantastic. He's got so many great quotes, but that's a great one that I'll definitely be taking here. And it's 100% true. I got my first customers from cold calling, right? And my first clients from cold calling. And that was without a doubt, when you have no experience of running a business and things like that, I always thought, oh, you just speak to people and they'll tell them your idea and they'll come running, right? Not much more difficult than that when you're trying to sell B2B, right? And actually provide a service. And you always have to do the hard graft, and you have to show up every single day and do things. And it takes longer than you actually think it will. It always takes longer than you think you will. But when you figure it out, it's worthwhile. So in terms of then, you've had many lessons, I'm sure, from your time in growing the business and your career. Have you tried before and what didn't work? What were your biggest lessons?
I think what you said, it takes longer than you expect it to take. It's harder than you expect it to be, but it'll be more worthwhile than you ever dreamed of. If I can say that, hardest lessons, you just got to be consistent. Being consistent daily, because sometimes it's like you have a plan and then you might execute it 2 days in a week, 3 days in a week. And then, yeah, you got to be consistent every day, nonstop. So I think that was because before I was like, okay, I went hard those last 3, 4 days, but it's not really like that. It's like a forever game. At
Absolutely.
least to me, it is. At least to me, what's work is only that.
I love
Maybe
it.
maybe some people have it easier, but not me. Yeah.
I can resonate with what you've said there. It's that it's like going to the gym, right? Like you go the first 3 days, you look in the mirror, nothing's changed. You do that for 3 weeks, you look in the mirror, you might see some change, but not much really. Like you go for 3 years, every single week, 3 times a week, you're going to see some change, right? You're going to see some, and it's about like, okay, the long game, the commitment to consistency, just showing up. I think one of the superpowers of a lot of entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, is knowing that you showing up is often a prerequisite for success, right? So you might not be your 100% best every single day, right? That doesn't firstly give you an excuse not to show up. And if you don't show up, that means fine, you don't show up. But those who show up, they're more likely to do more. And they might show up at 30%. 40%. And that's 30-40% more than they would do if they didn't show up. And they've learned 30-40% more than they did if they didn't show up. And you're teaching yourself how to be consistent when you show up, even when you're not in the greatest form, whether that is in the gym, anywhere in life, in the gym, in business, in your day-to-day with your family, whatever it might be. Showing up doesn't mean you have to show up at your absolute best, but for sure it does mean you show up on a consistent basis. So I think it's a really great lesson you shared there. Brian, it's been a really interesting conversation so far today, and I really appreciate it. I like to end every single podcast with the same question, right? It is, if you had a magic wand you could wave to solve one business problem, what would that be?
Hiring. I want to build a great company with great people. I think who you build it with is more important than what you build. So having a magic wand to bring me tier A talent that is aligned with our same goals, that would be amazing. I think that would be it.
Yeah, no, without a doubt, like hiring, I love asking that question because you hear so many different answers, whether it can be from cash flow to hiring to leadership teams to profitability to revenue. And I love hearing the diverse answers that I get from our guests. But yeah, hiring would 100% be one of the top problems I find speaking to most entrepreneurs and CEOs and leaders on this podcast. It's an ever-changing problem that is something that you can't solve forever, right? It's just a case of it is ongoing. You will lose your best players in the team. You will have to replace them at some stage. You will need to bring in good players. You need to bring in foundational team members that might not be around forever. You need to be able to adjust. So I absolutely love that. Brian, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. I think you shared some really interesting insights. It's been a great conversation. Thank you very much for coming on today. For those out there who might want to reach out to you and speak to you, where would they go? How would they find you?
They can just go to impulsecloud.io, or my email is bmolina@impulsecloud.io.
Perfect. Well, again, Brian, thank you very much for today.
Thank you so much for having me, Saeed. It's been a pleasure.